Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, quote, "It puzzles me why my friend, Governor Greg Abbott, would, at the last minute, about 22 minutes after 11 p.m., decide to veto this bill. Only can imagine, come to this conclusion, which surprises me, the governor of the state of Texas wants to legalize recreational marijuana in Texas." End quote. Welcome to episode 76 of the Weekly Docket, Silberman Law Firm podcast. Today is June 26, 2025. I'm Phil Silberman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by Chris Heald, who's the firm's supervising attorney and my co-host. Chris, we both thought the Astros were going to suck early in the season, but they don't. Okay. Now, don't lie to the listeners. Okay. You thought they were going to be bad too.
I did not. I'm not going to lie to the listeners. If I have to be totally truthful, I think my opinion would have been they may not have as great a teams as they had in 17 and 22, but hey, this team finds ways to win, and you never know. And that's exactly what we're seeing this year. This team, I don't want to say inexplicably, but maybe a little bit against what the statistics might suggest their record should be, they're performing well, and we can be very happy about that.
That's enough the conversation I remember when we went to the ballpark very early in the season, but we lost Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker. We moved our all-star second baseman to left field. I thought it was a joke. And then here we are, June 26th. They're first in the AL West, second best team in baseball, only behind the Tigers. And we played the Phillies. We're in a series with the Phillies. We're 2 up on the Phillies series. The Phillies pitched their ace yesterday, and we won with some left-hander that threw 85 miles an hour. How are they getting it done?
I agree. Like I said, my optimism was guarded. I would not have bet that they were going to win the West, but ever the fan, very happy, cautious optimism, always knowing that they could without necessarily banging the drum and saying, yes, we're definitely going to win. They're finding ways to win 1-0 games, 2-0 games. The pitching is doing it. If they regress a little bit, they regress a little bit, but it's a fun ride.
We are not a sports show. If we were, we would have a lot more listeners. So we've got to cover some legal topics today. Let's talk about what's on our docket. And the first thing we're talking about in our legal news section is Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He blocked the THC ban, much to everybody's surprise. So he vetoed it. So gummies and vapes are still legal. So Chris, you and all your poker buddies will be very happy about that.
We do not partake in that, or at least I don't. So anyone who's doing it I don't know. I'm not even going to touch that.
In our legal question sections today, we've got answering a question. This is from a potential client. I don't have enough money for your law firm to represent me in litigation. Can you just file the answer for me? So we'll be talking about that a little bit. And then in our rant and rave section, title of this piece is "The Woke Media Hiding the Real Population Numbers." So that's world population numbers. We will discuss. All right, let's go ahead and get kicked off with our legal news section. This is Texas Governor Greg Abbott blocking the THC ban. Chris, were you aware that there was a bill in the House and Senate that passed that would have made THC products, most THC products, gummies and vapes, a misdemeanor to own or make or sell THC products? Were you aware of that?
I was aware there was a bill. Does it actually ban everything or just certain varieties? Would all of these shops be immediately shut down? Or I thought Delta 9 was still allowed, but it's all these variants like Delta 8 or whatever that they were trying to stop because those are the harmful ones.
The chemical part of it and the science and the regulatory scheme was pretty complex, but the experts on this effectively said if Greg Abbott signed this into law, it would have shut down all the stores and we would not have any edible gummies or THC drinks or THC vapes that would be really effective or usable for people to do whatever they do with them. And we already have some of the strictest marijuana laws in the country, but it didn't pass. He did not sign it into law. And this kind of was a shocker to me, shocker to everybody.
I don't think
I've,
Patrick would
I,
have pushed it so hard if he thought that was going to happen. I did see him talking about it after, saying, I talked to the governor about this and he said, we're good. Why
yeah.
have your right-hand man go waste all his time doing this if you're not going to support him, or tell him, hey, you got
Well,
to fix this?
and to your point, we have a Dan Patrick quote, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick quote. This is quote, "It puzzles me why my friend, Governor Greg Abbott, would at the last minute, about 22 minutes after 11 p.m., decide to veto this bill. Only can imagine, come to this conclusion, which surprises me, the governor of the state of Texas wants to legalize recreational marijuana in Texas." End quote. That's Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. So I'll tell you, Chris, I'll tell you what happened. Governor Greg Abbott, he knows where his bread gets buttered. And it's not something I think we openly talk about, just how we talked about your friend group and not something you wanted to touch. But I can assure you, based on anecdotal evidence, which isn't very good, a lot of your friends, people are, Chris, or like the ladies of the Mahjong group, they are doing a lot of gummies and a lot of THC drinks. And this is very prevalent, not just among liberals, but also among conservative people. And Governor Greg Abbott, he just didn't want to touch this. So this was political suicide to basically sign this into law. That's what I think. So
Very possible. Or people could have kept getting it under the table like they used to back in the 90s, but the different world than when we went to high school.
what do you think? Are you happy that he vetoed it, or would you have signed it?
God, you always, I try to be consistent on everything, right? We all have our vices. I don't like government regulation, but I don't like these shops being on every corner either. I really have this sort of libertarian philosophy on most things. I think people should be free to make their own decisions, but I wish people would make reasonable decisions. If you want to partake in certain things that other people don't want to partake in, I think it's your job to do it responsibly. And if we could have a society where we all did our vices responsibly, we'd be okay. But unfortunately, we don't. So we have to have regulations. I know that's a non-answer, but
Well,
that's my answer.
I would have signed it. This has been a long time topic on the show. I think these places are awful. I think they're blights upon the neighborhoods in Texas. I think they attract a terrible element to them. And even though everybody's doing it, but I've said a long time, there's a lot of data out there that's coming out that these THC products are a lot stronger than the marijuana from the 90s and the 80s, and they are wreaking havoc on our brains. And not all of the data is completely out on that yet, but we're seeing people that have used THC for 2, 3, 4, 5 years just have these psychotic episodes. So I would have signed it. I think Governor Greg Abbott is a coward on this. I think he wanted to keep his job, and it would have upset too many people. But there you have it. Let's move on to our legal questions section. We got to tackle this one. This is quote, "I don't have this from a potential client. I don't have enough money for your law firm to represent me in litigation. Can you just file an answer for me?" Chris, we normally charge a $5,000 retainer fee. They need representation. They've been sued. We have to file it. They're going to take a default judgment if you don't file an answer or something like that. And the client says, "I just don't have the $5,000. Could you draft a pro se answer for me?" What's your response, Chris?
I don't love doing that, but we have done it in the past as long as our firm's not affiliated with it. I think you can go down to the courthouse and fill out a form. They want something that looks a little more official. So modest fee, if it's just to stop a default, we can do it for people. I've actually seen other attorneys do it. Like some of these people come to us and they say, I already had this other attorney draft. This is what they gave me. Their name's not on it. You're filing it pro se. So certainly no ethical issues with it. It's just, the risk is you don't want that person to keep calling you, trying to get more services after the scope has been completed and hoping to hook you in and get you to stay on the case.
Yeah. And we do it. The truth is, if you wanted to do this yourself, if you absolutely had $0, no money even to hire us for a couple hours to draft the pro se answer, you could about write anything you want down on notebook paper, take it down to the clerk and file it, and they would construe it as a general denial in Texas. It's a little bit risky. I mean, you could try that though. When we do it, we're going to draft the general denial usually, or sometimes it's a verified denial because in that case, it's got to be sworn or signed by the defendant usually, but we'll prepare an answer and then we won't file it electronically because Chris is when you file it electronically, there's some implication that we represent that person because it comes in on the attorney's electronic filing. So I don't recommend that practice. We prepare it, give it to them with the pro se signature line and say now as a pro se defendant, just take it down to the county clerk and they're not under the same electronic filing requirements that we are as attorneys and they'll accept it at the clerk's office. FYI, Chris, very different than federal court. Texas has sort of liberal pleading standards. You can just file a general denial in Texas. In federal court, you need to specifically deny claims or allegations, and that's much more involved. It's not like it's a huge deal, but for a layperson, that'd be much more involved. And that's under Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 8B, like Bravo. You need to specifically deny. So not quite as easy to do that in federal court. We're talking about just state court here. But yes, we will do it. Some attorneys will do it. It might buy you a little bit of time. But Chris, remember, what do you have coming due in about 30 days?
You got your mandatory disclosures. So we can warn them about those too, and we can give them the form to fill that out. You talk about federal. I don't imagine people getting sued for the amount in controversy limit of federal court. Usually they can afford attorneys or if there's diversity jurisdiction. So that's typically why we wouldn't see a federal pleading. But yeah, as you say, it's a liberal pleading standard. It's right there in the rules. It says all pleadings shall be construed liberally. If you have fair notice, if you can give effect to the words on the page, we're going to do it. So all anyone has to do is say plaintiff is wrong, and they're going to construe that as a general denial, save you from a default. I think it's just because it's so daunting to get sued, whether you're served by a constable or a process server. The paper says you have been sued. You must appear the Monday next following the expiration of 20 days. People don't know how to interpret that. They don't know exactly when that is. And even though they see that it says Monday, they say, my answer is due on Saturday. So they still know exactly. They don't know if they have to actually appear in court. If appearing means filing something, just like many of us like to hire professionals to do a lot of things in our lives. It just gives you that sense of comfort that, okay, at least I spoke to someone with a bar license and they advised me instead of trying to go it alone.
Yeah, I think you're right. Most of anytime we've seen this, it's been someone who's needs to do it in state court. But the rules in Texas are a little bit loosey-goosey when it comes to the rules of civil procedure. We're a little bit more like the Wild West. It doesn't mean there are not hard and fast deadlines. Federal court's a little tighter. The rules are a bit more adhered to in the federal court system. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment of the show, which is my favorite section. This is the rant and rave segment. And we're talking about the woke media hiding the real population numbers. This is world population. I've got to give some credit to Bill King. Are you familiar with Bill King in Houston, Chris? He does a newsletter. He ran for mayor. He did not win. Super nice guy. I had the pleasure of sitting next to him at some kind of luncheon one time. He does this newsletter. It's really interesting stuff. And this was an email he had a couple weeks ago where he was just talking about how the media has quietly not covered the real population numbers. And for decades, Chris, we've been told that the world's biggest problem is we have too many people. It's like the whole Marvel Avengers thing where Thanos wants to end all half the population with the snap of his fingers when he gets all the Infinity Stones. And he thinks he's done a good thing. You know that whole story, right?
I
Chris?
don't, but well,
come
go
on,
right
you do. He's embarrassed.
I have never watched an Avengers movie in my life.
Okay, I've got a 10-year-old, so we watch a lot of Avengers at my house. And if you have children or you like Marvel comics, everyone will know the whole Thanos wanting to cut the universe's population in half.
The universe, not just the world, the universe.
No, right, because it's the whole thing. So for decades, there were too many people and the warnings were dire. More people, more famine, more poverty, more environmental destruction. Chris, this is how they scared us into recycling. Remember in the late 80s and 90s when we were kids, It was all about recycling. Remember, you were terrified to use an aerosol can because the ozone layer may just disintegrate?
I remember a lot about that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's what they did. They were indoctrinating us at that time, having us believe that the world was essentially, we had all these limited resources, right? But Chris, alas, something unexpected has happened. And the United Nations, which is basically the world's most cited authority on population forecasts, they've taken notice, all right? And until recently, their models have predicted that the number of people would continue to increase here through going through the 21st century. And it was going to be at about 11 billion by the year 2100. But in its 2022 and 2024 revisions, the UN, without making much fuss about it, lowered its global population projections. And in their most recent data, puts the peak at about just 10 billion, and it comes 2 decades earlier. And that, the UN's estimate, is by far like the most conservative approach. There's a lot of other groups that study this data, and they think that the population peak is going to come way earlier than 2084. And we're basically going to have this planet of top of this empty planet. Now, that's the news. And I wanted to cover, Chris said, well, why are you not covering Iran and Israel and the bombings and all that? And I'm like, because everybody's covering that, but no one is covering this. And thanks to my friend, I'm going to call him my friend, even though we've met one time, he probably doesn't even know who I am. But thanks to my friend, Bill King, we've got this great information about the population projections. So
are you saying
Chris,
there's more people on Earth or less people on Earth?
Less people on Earth, Chris. That's the whole story. All the left and the environmentalists, they want us to believe that we're having this population explosion and we've got to conserve resources. And Chris, that's why you have to drive an electric car. That's why you have to have solar. That's why you have to do everything. You can't have oil-based paint anymore, Chris, because it's bad for the environment. That's the whole motivation.
So how many people are on Earth?
I don't know what the current, I don't know
That's
what
I'm
the
saying. They
current
say it's
numbers are.
8 billion. Are you saying it's not 8 billion?
The only data I have at this point, I don't have that number. You can look it up, but they were going to top out at 11 billion by the year 2100.
We'll be by 2030.
That was their original estimates. They keep dropping it. So it's 10 billion. And they think it's going to, a lot of other groups think this peak is going to come much sooner. So we're not going to have, where all the other data shows the population continuing to grow, and we're going to run out of resources because we have so many people. It's now moving the other direction. We're going to actually have less people. And that's been a huge shocker to kids like you and me that grew up 70s, 80s, 90s, where we all thought that
So you're saying that we're going to hit 10 billion and then it's going to decline.
Yeah, that's the peak, and then it starts declining.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, because you're Thanos.
I don't want to kill anyone, but again, going back, we need to be responsible. We're not rabbits.
Well,
we can't just populate the Earth to the fullest end.
Chris, I'm about to get heavy on you because you said I don't want to kill anyone, and I know you would never do that, and you were being serious about murder. But there are some people on the right that have said that's what abortions have actually done, and it's really not, and that it's all about this global fertility rate. And in 1970, the average woman had about 5 children. And today, the average woman's only having about 2.25 children.
We need everyone to have 5 kids. That would be a really bad situation if forever and ever everybody had 5 kids.
Chris, people are going to beg to differ on you. And I know you try to avoid controversy, but what you're saying is probably like the most confrontational thing I think you've ever said on the show. Yeah, no.
We don't all need to have 1 billion kids. We can stop overpopulating the Earth. We got hungry people. We got people without jobs.
Well, see, Chris, you're perfect for this piece because you are spewing the indoctrination that you've had your whole life.
I believe that we have too many people, and the ways of the world are different. Remember simpler times when people used to know their neighbors? Remember when people
No,
used to have dinner parties instead of everybody being on their phones all the time?
those are completely, that's a different thing. Chris, so if I were to give you a reason why we need to have more children, we're not even meeting the replacement rate, right? We're not even replacing the number of
But
people.
if we have any
In fact,
people already, we don't need to replace too many people.
you got to look at the numbers on this. I got after the show, we can't keep it after the show. Chris and I are going to dive in the numbers and I'm going to educate Chris on this, but it's 2.2. Chris, the example is countries like Spain and Italy and Japan. Japan can't get the cities in Japan have tried everything they can, build parks and free daycare to get young people to come and have babies. The society will die economically. You can't have a vibrant economy without children. It's happened to China too. China was basically limiting their population, and now China's in a huge world of economic collapse. So no, we're definitely, and in develop that 2.25 number is falling below the replacement rate. We're not replacing ourselves. It's actually probably closer to 2 in developed countries. And why? What's the predominant? It's not because we're dying. Actually, life expectancy is going up, albeit modesty. It's because of the stuff you're saying, Chris. It's cultural shifts. It's women and it's female education. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? But it's culturally.
Yeah, it's controversial. What's the show? Not Stepford Wives. What's the Kate Mara one?
I know the movie Stepford Wives.
No,
I think those are
the one where they wear the red robes. What's that one?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't call it either. My wife was real into it.
See, they don't want that. They want to be educated and make their own decisions.
We probably should have had a woman on the show for this piece, but I think the female education component of this, Chris, isn't so much. I don't think we're thinking so much about the 60s and 70s and education in America. I think we're thinking about people in undeveloped countries like India and West Africa and some Middle Eastern countries where those women are now finally starting, or maybe Pakistan, for example, where those women are now finally starting to get some education and some freedoms. Rights. So you're seeing that.
But doesn't that come in favor of then that being a sort of equilibrium when everybody's making informed decisions and everybody's doing what they want? That maybe we don't need 8 billion people. Maybe 6 billion's enough. Maybe this Earth will be just fine hurling through space with 6 billion people on it.
Well, you have to. There are people that model these out, right? And you have to have the ultimate equilibrium is the replacement rate. You have to have enough to meet your replacement rate to stay flat. And we think that if you fall below your replacement rate, then in theory, you end up like Japan and your people will just cease to exist. That's what happens. That's the extreme example. So there is an equilibrium. You can have less people, but then you need to start replacing yourselves, or you just
200 years ago, we had fewer people. So why would we cease to exist if we had the same number of people we had 200 years ago?
200 years ago, people were still having, again, you remember when we do probates, Chris, and like we talk to someone who's like really not like somewhat old, you talk to maybe every now and then I get a 70-year-old person whose mom, just died, who was 90, right? And you ask, and the number of children, it's always, I'm one of 11. Come on. Without making any policy judgments, that's true. Now, why were they having more kids in 11 back then 100 years ago? To work on the farm, I don't know.
I just mean that, look, the United States existed as a country with fewer people. Why do we need to keep growing? But maybe that's my ignorance. I don't know everything. I definitely
we'll see.
Feel like there were simpler times when everybody knew each other and we didn't have all this technology, that nobody actually had any face-to-face interactions. And I think of them as one and the same, because when you have more people, it necessitates technological development because we can't possibly talk on the phone. We have to have text. Now we have to have email. We can't have real food. We have to have fake food that's bad for all of us, because if we actually all tried to eat real food, we'd run out. So
I agree about the food problem. I think I'm not sure the population issue touches exactly upon what you're pointing out. That's more maybe let's get back to an Amish lifestyle. I don't think we're ever going back.
No, we're being Amish, but if we hadn't started genetically making food, it would have stopped itself. It would have been like, hey, not keep having people if we don't have enough to support them.
Chris also doesn't believe in AI.
Definitely
so
don't
like
believe in
it.
AI.
I'm just
Won't
throwing
like
that
that
out. All right. Look, I'm not sure we were the best people to cover that piece. I don't even feel that good about how we handled it, but we did it, and it's
We can go
recorded
back
and
a
it's-
disclaimer. If you don't want to feel stupid, stop listening now. Let's go insert that before the segment.
I think we got the facts out. I'm just not sure our opinions were completely on point. I feel pretty good about that legal question that we did cover that correctly. But for
this is for entertainment purposes only. Don't listen to anything we say. This is download the box so that we get the credit for the download. You don't even have to listen to it.
No, don't do that. All right. Hey, that brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silberman. Chris has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcast. And Chris, as Chris accurately said, nothing in the show is to be considered legal advice, and this is all been for
or practical advice.
If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com. Tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great rest of your day and week.